It is Wednesday, August, I don't care. And we're going to talk, Ron and I are going to talk about the AFC Conference. I hope you guys enjoyed yesterday. We just were shooting the stuff about a handful of topics. And I thought we touched on some good stuff, didn't we, Ron?
I think so. A lot of moving parts, even as we speak, with Rashee Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now it's official. He's suspended games 1 to 6. Adjust, if you will. I'm not making really any particular adjustment there, and some teams, we're going to see them fill in with the waiver wires, with the cuts. We'll get an idea of what positions that they're a little bit weakened, because now they're going to try to address that. There's a few teams that need to add depth at some positions. Look at the waiver wire. That's all that's going on. We're brainstorming. We're getting ready for the season. I feel in a good spot.
Just a reminder, this is all started on off of Ron and I just making sure that we're just sharing how we get together weekly. So it's not our job to entertain people, but we hope to be entertaining anyway. But I see my graphics are all screwed up. Anyway, this is a good lesson learned. I don't know everything. It's just remarkable how so many problems or issues can come all at once. It gets to the point where you're just laughing at saying, of course this is going to happen now, or of course this is going to happen now. And one of the areas of personal growth that I've had is, rather than getting angry, you can't change what you can't change. And if you're a bettor, the last thing you want to be is someone on tilt or emotional, not thinking clearly. So from the betting end of things, as a piece of advice is having control over your emotions, controlling what you can control, and you'll be better off for it. And one of my weaknesses was just getting flustered and flurry, and you saw some of that many a time, Ron. So you're familiar with it, and I would challenge most people to try to put up with what I have today. But it's serenity now. I can only control what I can control.
Yep, makes sense to me. You really have to be focused when you're doing the handicapping and wagering part. You can't let outside influences get involved that way. You got to budget your time. You got to have a routine. I think both of us have this kind of routine that we know where we need to be each day in order to get to the place where we want to get to prior to kickoff. And that's all you can ask for. Life happens, so you work around everything and you manage it, and you just make it part of the routine. It's not really going to be a problem if you go ahead and understand it from the get-go.
I have teaser news. DraftKings was the last legal or regular U.S. licensed book that I corrected that spelling. Jesus. It's one of those days. DraftKings was the last spot where you could lay minus 120 on 2-team teasers. And we have just been informed that they have changed all their pricings. So that punches a lot of people in the stomach. Obviously, people know that I was heavily reliant on teasers for my bet pivots and such. But I also was adapting in a different way also with alt line parlays and trying to do it that way instead. So I feel I'm a little bit better off to take it, a little bit in stride, so to speak. Plenty of there's lots of places you can still find teasers at better prices, but they're going. You can't help but say that they're going for the jugular a bit when you raise prices from minus 120 that had already been raised from minus 100, minus 110, and now they make a jump to minus 135. And, that's a big jump, Ron.
Yeah, it's an absolute big jump. It changes every 10 cents changes your win rate in terms of ROI, return on investment. You can't just sit there and say, well, 110, 120, what's the big deal? It's a few dollars here and there, but it really does add up. So you have to calculate the ROI, and it's getting tougher and tougher with the teases. It's the books are in business to make money, and it's pretty evident what's going on out there with the changes.
Yeah, it's I don't have my no, I don't have my figures that the win rates are, but it's really, really difficult to keep having a decent shot of being profitable at anything over 120.
So I have a question for you now, especially with Tommy's comment. I hope, Tommy, you're doing well. The 3-team teases, which I kind of did notice that we haven't seen as many changes with that. At what point would somebody want to pivot strategy to a 3-team tease? But because to me, it's like horse racing exactas. You keep giving back a little bit of vigorish there, but if you can find favorable situations, how do you adjust strategy to maybe look at 3-team teases instead of 2?
Well, that's exactly what I did last year. I didn't place too many 2-team teasers last year. In fact, I think I stopped doing it entirely because I wanted to put myself in a position of getting plus money back on everything. So I don't have, the next time you're going to talk at length, I'm going to grab my other paperwork. It must be outside. I can discuss some numbers specifically, but I transitioned into only plus money teasers anyway. A lot of these shops that have had these bad teaser numbers on the 2-teamers, they kind of get in line with additional teams. So just because a teaser shop had a minus 130, it did not mean you couldn't use that place for teasers for 3 teams or 4-team teasers. So that's something to keep in mind. The DraftKings did raise the 3-teamers to 13 cents. I forget. I need to grab my paperwork. I'm in a complete loss. Oh, okay. No, they're 6.5 points. Let's see what they did on the. Let's see. So they're charging 15 cents more on 6-pointers, 13 cents more on 6.5s, and 10 cents more on 7s. And they took 20 cents away from 2-teamers or from 3-teamers with 2 teams. What am I talking? I'm trying to can't even spit it out properly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
3-teamers, 6 points. That's what I meant. They took 20 cents away there and 10 cents off of the 7-pointers from what they used to be.
I have a feeling that it's traffic for 2-team teasers is not going to be reduced all that much. That's what these books are counting on. They're going to say people are still going to lay this minus 130 and above, even if they were used to minus 120. And if they can get away with it, they will probably try to get away with it. But one thing everybody should do, whether you've done teases in the past, whether you want to continue to do it, whether you morph into 3-team teases, whether you stay with 2, track your records. Track whether or not that's becoming positive ROI for you. Don't keep doing it and thinking that you're doing well without tracking it. Whatever you do, whether it's straight bets, whether it's on straight plays with a spread, over, under, and stuff, I strongly recommend that you track your progress so that you know where your strengths are and where you're starting to give up a little bit of juice. So if you're continuing on with the 2-team teases and the 3-team teases, just do self-tracking. Make sure you know what's working for you and what's not working for you.
The break-even rate on minus 120s was 73.86%.
Yeah.
So if you were, so basically you were able to find plus 150s, which is the equivalent of minus 120, even at the shops that were forcing you to pay 130s. Once you get to 130, you have to win at a 75% win rate. That's pretty tough for only 6 points. They were more than generous at DraftKings at plus 160 because the conversion was really plus 150. So that was nice. And they were more than generous on the 4 teams because they had plus 260. But the 4-teamers actually now pay at DraftKings what a minus 120 teaser is. So as you scale up to 3 and 4 team teasers at different places, you can find reasonable prices and use them accordingly. I mean, it's not like people want to go out firing those, but you're not getting ripped off value wise if going to 3 and 4 team teasers as long as you're just getting the right prices. So, but I think they're at I don't have their exact conversion odds there, but so if that helps a little bit, I've got the chart. If anybody has any other specific questions, let me know.
Last question I have on teases is we know we're going to have some unusual results week 1, and then after week 1, we're going to have that week 1 overreaction. What teams look good week 1, but they're going to tank the rest of the year, or they're not as good as that week 1 just because they were more prepared or the other team was less prepared in the preseason. The new staffs, the new coaches, the new quarterbacks, all the chemistry and so on. What would be a recommendation for strategy for week 1 or week 2 teases when we don't know as much as we think we know?
Yeah, you have to be really cautious on those. But answering Bertie's question, I was arranging 7-point teasers at plus money, doing 3 and 4 or 5, 3 and 14 teasers. The 10-point teasers have not changed at DraftKings, and you can still do those, which is good. But as far as week 1 early season goes, you just have to remember this: anything that has more variance is not your friend. So with that in mind, how comfortable do you feel betting week 1? Not very comfortable, right? That tells you what you need to know. The more uncomfortable you feel, the less value you're probably getting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tricky slope. Obviously not an area that is in my wheelhouse, so I stay away from it. But in terms of there's just so much teaser talk these days. It's really taken over as far as just the straight betting. And,
I'll talk about it more, at another time. But there are alternatives, and that's parlaying, alt lines, but they make it really tough on you because alt lines aren't easy to figure out when you're getting ripped off and when you're getting value. So it's tricky, but there are alternatives.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there's strategies, even in-game strategies. Wait for the first drive, see this, see that. But if you wait for the first drive and you like a side, and it could backfire on you because then you don't get a play in. So you have to be careful in a lot of ways.
I mean, in the last comment on teasers, we'll get off it, but when you have a situation like week 1 or other weeks where you have a game on a Thursday, a game on a Friday, a game on a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, well, those teasers can be really valuable because they allow you to pivot along the way. Mm-hmm. So you can find ways to retain value or use that value along the way. And that's specifically what I was using teasers for. That's why I was specifically taking plus money teasers, because I was extracting value or removing exposure along the way. So in a plus money fashion. So it gets a little tricky, but those are some of your options. Are we going to? I got to tell you, I got to be honest with you. I had a really hard time with time over the last 24 hours due to various problems. I would have thought I'd be excited about the NFC. I'm more of an NFC guy, and as I'm getting through, I'm going through, I'm realizing, God, is the AFC that much more interesting? And I don't know what it is about the NFC this year, but it's just not. It's not taking to me yet.
Well, as we talk about the various teams and conferences, one thing for me only became clear after I did my final 32 team win grid. And that's the number one seed for the NFC, in my opinion, is absolutely completely up for grabs. There's basically 5 teams, once I did the grid, that could be that number one seed. So it's going to be a tight race. I think personally, the top 3 teams are clearly not in the NFC. I'm sorry, Philadelphia, but my top 3 teams are, with Kansas City added to Baltimore and Buffalo. You have to go down to the 4th team to get into the NFC. And even then, I don't know. The NFC is going to be a wild ride. That's my initial observation.
It should be. I'm not getting comments, but I'm seeing these clicks. So I don't know if there's a snafu, but I'm seeing like a flickering. But well, yeah. The division I have the least amount of interest in starts with Atlanta.
All right. Interesting team because new quarterback, potentially some pass rush for the first time, a great running back.
Well, I never understood. I mean, I sit there and that Cousins scenario, just feels just goofy. The Pitt situation, how that guy hasn't been utilized better, it just dumbfounds me. I'm looking at this team, and it seems like they have some good stuff, but the defense has its problems. They have no pass rush. I'm not sure what we can expect out of Penix or Cousins, quite frankly. I did watch the quarterback documentary, and that was interesting, him going through the process of not knowing whether he's going to be there or not, and not being happy about his play. It seemed like he had a worse season than he really did. I mean, it seemed like Penix played more than he did. I don't know what it is, but it seemed like Cousins, was failing the whole season long, but he was okay for a lot longer than I seem to remember. And Penix didn't come in until much later than I kind of remember.
Yeah. The problem with Cousins is when he was forced to throw the ball, we saw a lack of arm strength. We saw something with the injury. When they could rely on their running game and when they were playing other NFC South opponents, it was easier because the Saints were average. Tampa's pass defense wasn't where it needed to be, and Carolina was well below average, and that's 6 games. So I think it masks some of the things. They were trying to mask some of the things that Cousins was capable of, and we know Penix has a live arm. Penix's downfall here is he's left-handed, and he just lost his right tackle for the entire season. And that's the blind side protector for the left tackle, for the left-handed quarterback. So they're going to be a little bit down on the offensive line. I don't know what the NFL was thinking again, but they have 5 primetime games for Atlanta. And that's asking a lot for a young team that's not used to it. It's one thing if you're Kansas City and you're going to be playing every day and you know it, even Dallas and some of these other teams. But I see late fatigue being a factor based on this, on the pacing of the Dallas schedule. So that's in my negative ledger. The only positive ledger I have is that they can improve their pass rush. They knew it was a weakness. Well, they knew after 10 years that it's been a weakness. And so they took some strides to address that. So maybe that can rebound. Who knows? Their place kicker was pretty awful last year, and maybe he can rebound as well. What keeps them in this race is the fact they're in a soft division. In general, I don't think they're going to come up with a winning record, but I think they're close enough that it wouldn't shock me if they squeezed into the divisional race. But I worry about that late fatigue.
Well, the situation is entirely different than last year because expectations were on Atlanta last year. Optimism was there. And I think that they're just trying to get healthy at this point. And that first quarter, technically, it's not impossible that they can't come out of that first quarter with a lot of optimism. I mean, I think Tampa Bay is a better team.
Yeah.
Do I have that? Did they start off with Tampa?
They start out with Tampa.
Right.
This week one slate is amazing.
So if Atlanta beats Tampa Bay, you can't be that surprised about it. Then they go to Minnesota, which would be kind of a surprise. But when we get to them, they've got a whole plethora of issues. Then you've got Carolina, and then you've got a home game, with Washington, and it's so realistically, 2 or 3 wins out of there isn't, they should start off okay with some optimism.
They have to build up wins because they're going to have fatigue later in the season. And can they build up wins? I think it's possible. Absolutely. My charts for September, my game plan, and you guys should be thinking about game plan as well, is the defense better than what we've seen the past few years? Can that 70% pass defense go down because they have a pass rush now? And if we don't see it against the easier part of the schedule, then we're not going to see it. So I have some definite checkpoints for Atlanta.
If switching to Carolina, the one thing that I take out of Carolina is that Bryce Young became the whipping boy and a laughing stock, so to speak. And then all of a sudden, he showed up. What's he going to be like? He had some good. He had a good second half of the season. What do you think is going to be the result here? Is he more of the guy that we were laughing at, or is he more of the guy that showed, hey, he belongs?
So first part of the season, he didn't perform well at all. And broken record, Chris, but there was tape on him. People were strategizing against them. They didn't change their stripes with the coaching staff, so on and so forth. And then he got benched. And when he got benched, he got to see things from a different perspective. He was still young enough, and he's cerebrally, he's pretty smart. The question was, could he get everything done on the field with an offensive line that's not very good and with a wide receiver core that's not very deep, and the rookie tight end got hurt and so on and so forth. But he came back and he put up some good numbers. So I think that was a real confidence boost. And in his case, maybe a good benching. I think the team did him it was well served for him to sit back and take stock, especially when Carolina wasn't going anywhere in the playoff race. Do we still have concerns for this year? Not just because of Bryce Young. We have concerns because they weren't really that good last year. Even in the last 7 games that Bryce Young was good, their defense was over 31 points per game in the last 7 games. That's a problem. They haven't gotten that much better. 3 of their wins, Chris, last year were in overtime. So even their wins were close. So they've got to be a little bit better to compete this year. And I question whether they're a little bit better.
Well, getting rid of Thielen's probably going to be a net positive for them because they free up enough money to get a decent receiver. He only had 48 reception or receptions last year, I think.
But he moved the chains, and on third down, Bryce Young's going to have to find somebody different because Thielen had the hands. He could 3rd and 7 was his forte. He's not going to stretch the field anymore. Well, they don't have that anymore, so they've got to find one of their tight ends. They've got to find confidence in other areas to get this done. If you look at their schedule, it's pretty great pacing through week 11. So the schedule is not going to be the reason they fail. The roster might be the reason they fail.
Yeah, Bertie's right. It just seemed like Thielen was always on the injury list also. To me, and the last thing I had to say about him is I'm not that high on Carolina. It seemed like they used to have a defense that would at least keep them around, and that seemed to be, as you mentioned, is giving way. So how can you have optimism about it? But this team has always had a tradition of showing up when you least expect them sometimes too. So they're a goofy team, but no expectations from them.
No, their schedule will permit them to maybe get less than great focus from their opponents, but that's how they're going to have to win because they don't match up roster-wise with a lot of the NFL.
The Saints, I don't think there's much positive to say. You know what? We always used to make a big deal about Kamara. Is he going to play? Am I right that the guy's never even had a 1,000-yard season? Does that make sense?
I'd have to double check that. He's used more in the passing game than the running game, so that's entirely possible. If he's had one, he barely squeaked by with one. And he wasn't used in the preseason. We didn't expect him to be used in the preseason. They're going to need him. They have some guys on IR. Every tight end is banged up on their team. Taysom Hill, who was supposed to be a Swiss Army knife that wasn't used correctly last year or any year, he's starting out. He's going to miss the first 4 games. Another tight end is going to miss the first 4 games. So they absolutely need Kamara to move the chains. Otherwise, the defense is going to be on the field longer. And here's my take on Dennis Allen. We know he wasn't a very good head coach. So what I think is going to happen with Dennis Allen is if you want a positive for New Orleans, eventually they're going to have a better coach because Kellen Moore is much more creative than Dennis Allen. But what I see and what's in my game plan is that I think this defense is going to regress without Dennis Allen being involved.
I thought it was a strange place for Staley to end up. I think that I think you mentioned that he's had great success as a coordinator, but this seems like the worst possible coordinator situation to take. What do you think?
Yeah. It's a problem because here's a team that never drafts in quantity because they waste draft picks. And then they don't even draft that well to begin with the picks that they have. So they're not building the roster year by year by year. And now you have a new coordinator to, they've shelved some old guys like Latimer was traded last year and so on and so forth. So you're looking at Staley to come in and implement a defense with guys that are basically journeymen or people that have very low draft ratings defensively. It's a tough ask. Like you said, this isn't the best situation that he's going into.
It just seems strange. It really. Why would you take that position behind a first? Kellen Moore hasn't been a head coach anywhere, right?
No, he's young. He's going to learn trial and error. If they could ever change the GM, who's been there for 20-something years, and have better philosophical, strategic planning decisions for the long run. I mean, Bill, maybe they wanted to go when they had better quarterback play, short run, try to make a run at the title. But now this is about long-term planning. And until the GM understands that, they're always going to be a work in progress. Kellen Moore is dealing with a pass defense that's been top 3 to 5 in the last 4 years. And so my watch area and my suggestion to people out there is if that starts to slip, then this ship is going to sink.
It's going to sink to the bottom.
Yeah. They have my lowest power rating going in. I don't think that's a shock, but New Orleans has my lowest power rated. I think they're going to commit turnovers with either quarterback, whether it's Rattler or the rookie. And I think they're going to have trouble defending other quarterbacks.
I think we were, last year, I think we were both a little optimistic on Tampa Bay and what they were able to do. I think we both like how Baker's improved. He's a respected quarterback. He's potentially dangerous. He finished with a 71% completion.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty strong. 41 touchdowns. 16 picks are still a lot.
Yeah, he does try to do too much at times. I wish I could say I was right about Tampa to start the year, but that was the one real miscue I had with the season win total. I didn't think that Baker could repeat an unbelievable 2023 season, and he did. And hats off to him. I just thought he's had an amazing 2-year run.
The real issue is are these receivers going to stay healthy? Because, at the end of the season, he was playing without both. So Godwin and Evans. Evans seems like he's never going to see a full slate of games. And probably Godwin won't either, will he?
Yeah, Godwin has been activated, but he's expected to miss the first 4 weeks. The rookie that was really impressive last year was McMillan. He was catching five catches every game, last 5 or 6 games. And he has a pretty serious neck injury. So he's going to miss about 8 weeks of the season. So they're going in and they're not healthy right now. So Evans, yeah, he's healthy right now. And boy, he's going to be needed right out of the gate. They hope that their run game, which went from last to second, they were dead last in running in 2023. And in 2024, they were second in the NFL in running. So where do they fit in 2025? Because they need that run-pass balance. Cris, without the run-pass balance, Baker Mayfield will have a couple of bad habits.
Usually it seems like this division is a Yahtzee division. I don't think New Orleans has any hope in hell. Do you?
Yeah. Really, unless we're wrong about Carolina's defense, the only team that can dethrone Tampa would be Atlanta. And Atlanta is going to have to improve in a few different metrics to get to that point. And again, that right tackle injury is serious. So I don't know if there's Tampa regression somewhere down the line, but because the other teams do not do succession planning, they're usually among the worst 3 teams at drafting. I think it keeps Tampa, even with a first place schedule. Tampa's schedule is certainly tricky. It is easy at the end. So this probably will be the only time I really mention it, because I'm not going to give away things in the middle of the year. But if you see Tampa hovering around 5-6, I think they may be a buy on to win the division, even at 5-6 after 11 games. Because if you look at the back 6 games of the schedule, it's a get well quick notice for Tampa.
Yeah, important thing to remember is some of these teams are doomed or from the go and can finish well, and vice versa. So that's what you want to kind of try to pick out, those types of teams that are going to leave such a bad taste in your mouth, or you're going to want to feel like riding that wave, and all of a sudden it flips on you. So oftentimes you can predict it.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned it yesterday. I did watch the Jerry Jones Dallas Netflix special. It was pretty good. I was surprised at the candor they had, frankly. I thought it was definitely worthwhile. And it makes looking at this team now all the more depressing. Why should I be optimistic about Dallas at this point?
Well, you said you had Kansas City fatigue, or people in general have Kansas City fatigue. I have Jerry Jones fatigue. I don't need to hear a quote from him every day that talks about an 8-8 team every year, 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. Every once in a while, they rise up. They win all their home games in 2023, and then they're immediately out of the playoffs as soon as that starts. What has Dallas done in the last 20 years that we need to hear Jerry Jones day after day? Okay, so let me give you the positives. The positives, I kind of like their uncommon opponents. These are the three opponents that the other teams in the division do not play. Remember last year, I was very high on Philly because they came in second and Dallas came in first, and Philly had an unbelievable advantage in uncommon opponents. Well, that flips this year because Dallas, you're right. They went from 8-0 to 2-7 in home games last year. So what flips this year is Dallas has a pretty decent uncommon opponent schedule. They add a wide receiver in Pickens, a contested catch specialist. So between CeeDee Lamb and Pickens and some serviceable tight ends that Prescott's very familiar with, that's a positive as well. And it's a pretty fair schedule, weeks 1 to 10. So, Chris, that's my positives.
They've got this. They're overpaying Prescott. Even if Parsons stays, that relationship can't return the way that it was. The defense really wasn't that good. They've got tight end issues, running back position, that's not solid.
Horrible running back decisions made during the draft. And now one of them is on IR and the other one is banged up and he's not a full-time back to begin with. He's best used on wheel routes in the pass game because of his cutting ability.
I don't even know what's Prescott supposed to do with the healthy players he has. He's got
it's creating mismatches for Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. And, there's a path for both of those guys to win. I mean, they're both really good players. But are we talking that they have to get into shootouts? Because if they don't have Parsons, that really hurts their pass rush because he occupies blockers to begin with. And if they don't have Parsons, then what about the very depleted secondary that's missing at least 2 bodies, if not 3, to start the year? They're all banged up.
Oh, I forgot to use my BS thing for the head coach. That they just got BS for a head coach. So
yeah,
where was he previously? Schottenheimer.
He was there as part of the Dallas organization for the last year or two. I can't remember exactly where he was before. He's going to be a figurehead for Jerry Jones, which is kind of what Jerry Jones likes. In terms of scheme planning, it's not going to be all that exciting or creative as when Kellen Moore was there a couple of seasons previous to, I think 2023 was Kellen Moore's last season there. Again, we know what Dallas is going to do offensively. They're going to try to feed 2 players and get by with what I like the tight ends there. Are they world beaters? Not necessarily, but they're reliable and they're experienced.
As I didn't mention it today, but I took the summer off like I used to and kept up on my timelines generally and probably paying attention to buzz or things like that a little bit more than usual. And certainly the Giants have been funny because when the lines came out, they were like a heavy bet under. Everybody thought this team was worthless and no hope. And that's transitioned to they're a buzz team. They're underrated. They've got a lot of tools. The defense, a lot of hidden assets, so to speak, that are going to have a chance to surprise this year. So, people want to get behind them now all of a sudden. Have you noticed that as well?
Yeah, quietly, we talked about Cleveland yesterday, and Cleveland had, if you ignore the drama at quarterback, Cleveland had a decent preseason. Well, quietly, the New York Giants have had a little bit better preseason than even Cleveland. They're just kind of going under the radar right now. But you want another similarity to Cleveland, and this is what's scary, is that Cleveland's schedule, we talked about it, if they don't get a win week 1 against Cincinnati, Cleveland's in trouble. Now let's look at the New York Giants schedule to start the year. It's not fun either, at Washington and at Dallas. So back-to-back road games for Russell Wilson. Then they host Kansas City, unfortunately for them, on Sunday Night Football. Reason why I say unfortunately is because you'd rather have Mahomes in a regular Sunday game. You don't want him in a standalone Sunday night game where they can focus a little more on the non-conference opponent. Then you have the Chargers, who travel well, Saints, then back to the Eagles, Denver, and Eagles. If you look at week 6, 7, and 8, hosting Philly, at Denver, at Philly. Brutal. So it's a tough schedule for a team that I think is better than last year.
Well, the Neighbors is okay, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Considering the quarterback play he had last year and what he accomplished.
I was wondering why we had a comment. I don't think they'll do well without Neighbors also, but at least he's healthy from what I remember. So he's obviously an important cog. Who's their number 2 receiver?
All right. Let's look up who their number 2 receiver is. Because it doesn't jump off the page for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's because they don't have one. Wan'Dale Robinson, very short area guy, would be the number 2 receiver. Some might say Darius Slayton, but these are really wide receiver 3s. They don't have a wide receiver 2. That's a problem.
And who's the running back there?
Running back. I just had it listen. Scadaboo's there, and he fits the culture. The other guy, Tracy, I believe. He started fast, was slow the second half of the year, and he had a good preseason, so they're going to rely on him. I think he could be okay. As far as Hyatt, Bertie mentions Hyatt. He doesn't know how to run a route, and he drops a lot of balls. Other than that, I really like him.
Other than not being able to do his job, I like him.
Yeah. He gets open. Somehow he gets open, and Russell Wilson's moon balls are going to find him. Jalen Hyatt should be better than he is, but he just disappoints every step of the way. He's on the roster. He made the roster primarily because he got a touchdown catch in the second quarter of preseason week 3, and because what are the other alternatives at wide receiver? On 20 other teams, he can't make it, but on this team, they certainly hope he does better than what he's shown.
So they had a plus 12 turnover ratio last year and still finished like they did. So
yeah, that's unsustainable. I don't show him plus 12 last year, actually. I have minus 8.
Minus 141 point ratio and a plus 12 turnover ratio.
Maybe I'll have to relook at that because I wrote down minus 8.
I still, you know what? I don't know what to make of them. It's really, this football season is really easy to not take, have predispositions about certain teams because, anything can happen with some of these teams. But I don't think that there's a high ceiling. I think that schedule's too tough, and I think they're going to be in a lot of close games though, and they just they have a way of mucking things up, so to speak.
I like their defensive line. It's one of the NFL's best. I don't like their secondary, so the defensive line is going to have to do all the heavy lifting to make it easier on their secondary. I think you mentioned, the Tennessee-Denver game. Who knows? Maybe Denver's too big a favorite or whatever. The game I would look at is the New York Giant-Washington game because the Giants have a history of covering at Washington. And because this is game 1, the brutal schedule hasn't really started yet. I wouldn't be shocked if the Giants were highly competitive week 1.
That wouldn't shock me at all. I expect the bad teams to come out hard. All the teams are going to be hard, but they certainly have a lot to prove. And these divisional matchups, that's when you really want to stick it to.
Yeah.
You just throw out how good or bad you think teams are because it just doesn't operate that way. Washington. Now, I talked positively about Washington. 2 years ago, I thought they were going to do somewhat what they did last year. I thought that they had enough tools in the shed to build something half decent. I skipped Philly. Sorry, I went out of order. But I'm not against Jaden Daniels. I think, Ron, that's the first time you got in trouble on the internet, wasn't it? When you ran the poll.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the internet. But
yeah, I know. I got in trouble, so I eased back on that. It really, people thought that meant that I didn't like Jaden Daniels. I think I was just running a poll as to, just take those four. There's an obvious top four to me, and I don't think you anoint a quarterback based on 1 year. Do I love Daniels? Yeah, he's special. It's going to be an interesting year number 2 because we talked about this with Houston. There was tape on CJ Stroud, and we expected a little better regression, and he gave a little better regression last year, but he was still really good. This is what I expect about Daniels as well. The schedule heats up tremendously. They're going to be under the microscope. Every team has.
This is an entirely different dynamic with this team this year. I mean, for gosh sakes, I don't even know it was like the last quarter of the season before they didn't convert a 4th down attempt, if I'm not mistaken. It was just preposterous. And they were able to sneak up on teams because when you're talking about a team that wasn't expected to do anything, a rookie quarterback, performing miracles, people took that with a grain of salt. This year, they're not going to. They're going to be prepared for Washington, and there's no way Daniels is going to get all those miracles again. There's going to be some obstacles along the way, some bumps in the road, and we'll have to see how he deals with certain things. Wasn't Debo, though, when he showed up, wasn't he out of shape? He looked in rough shape coming in.
Well, he was traded in the offseason, so we don't have any data on him. We know he was banged up last year with San Francisco, but no, he's just getting there. Same with the tackle, Tunsil. He's getting there just now. Lattimore, we don't know how much is left in the tank. They drafted an offensive tackle. The one good thing that I can say about Washington is I think their roster is a little better than last year. There's no question that this roster is better. But we're looking at unprecedented stuff. You mentioned it. You kind of hinted at it. They really didn't perform to their record last year. They weren't really an 11-win kind of team. They just had good fortune and played an easier schedule. Now they're going in prime time. The more they run Daniels against these better teams, the more he's going to wear down in short weeks. It's just a fact of life. Their rest differential, Chris, is about -13. They allowed 50 sacks last year. The pacing in weeks 2 through 11 is not good. So as much as I like Daniels, there's so many things that could go wrong with this team. And maybe it's a contrarian opinion to think that Washington will take at least a little bit of a step back while still maybe making the playoffs. But it's an opinion that I'm going to start with, especially when the schedule pacing gets tricky.
I expect them to be good. I just don't. Yeah. I think that they're going to be a better team that doesn't look better than last year. One of those types of situations. It's just going to be a lot harder on them.
But you could be a better team and have a worse record, and that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's my feeling about them. And Philadelphia, I don't have much to say about Philadelphia. I mean, they're doing all things right. As it was mentioned by somebody, they're sort of like what Dallas used to be. They're making the right moves. They're getting the great players together, and you can't argue with success. they barreled through last season well, and they reloaded. What can go wrong?
Yeah. Well, one of their deficiencies, they actually just shored up the last couple of weeks. We don't know if wide receiver three was completely non-existent last year. They had just 2 wide receivers. That was dangerous because their tight end was hurt as well. They didn't have as many weapons. They were lucky that Barkley and the second place schedule got them through. So this year they have a first place schedule, but they traded for Mechie, which is a really good move for a young wide receiver that might do some damage in this offense. And I think there's going to be a package for Dotson this year. So all of a sudden, wide receiver 3 is no longer a wide liability for them, and they're healthy at least right now at tight end. So there's some positives. I know this kind of is weird, what I'm going to say, but I've said it to you, Chris. I've said it to a couple people. I don't like the fact that Philadelphia does not have a 2-game homestand at any point in the year. Every single time that they get a home game, the next week they're packing to go somewhere else except for the bye week. They're going to be home. They're going to be away. They're going to be this. They're going to be that. I don't like the fact that they don't get to have this roster or the schedule continuity that a lot of other teams have. And of course, they're playing the first place schedule. There's a lot of revenge games on their schedule. Kansas City has revenge. The Rams have late, they almost pulled the game out last year. The Rams have revenge. It's going to be warmer weather. Tampa Bay has double revenge, Philly has double revenge against Tampa, but Baker Mayfield does well against them. Detroit is an interesting game. I think there are some challenges to Philly this year, but I do think they're going to win the division.
Yeah, I think they did. I'm pretty sure they will too. I think that's an excellent observation of not being able to stay at home. Always having to, up, down, up, down, up, down. Yeah. It takes its toll by the end of the season, and maybe they'll have a hangover from last year, like a lot of teams have also. So they can only self-destruct as far as I'm concerned. But
yeah, they could win 11 games and everybody's happy, and I'll be especially happy because their win total is 11.5.
The beginning of the summer, Arizona was everybody's. It seemed like the team that's going to sneak up, and actually, this is their chance to make a breakout from years past. And offensively, they've got tools. I mean, it seems like when you look at this team, they've got tools. The thing that always concerns me about Arizona is Murray, and every season he has a second half collapse. He just can't last the whole season. If you look at the way the team performs for whatever reason, and he actually had some good games in the second half of the season, didn't he?
Year? No, he was pretty good, to be honest. The offense wasn't a liability at all because running back Connor stayed healthy. I have some doubts whether or not he's durable enough for a 17-game season, but that didn't hurt him last year, and they ran the ball pretty well. There was a comment in the chat about Marvin Harrison Jr., and I do think sneakily he's going to be better this year. There'll be more impact plays. It seemed like he ended up catching a lot of balls, but they were kind of incidental catches. They weren't game-changing type plays with Marvin Harrison. I think we'll see a bump up in year 2 from him in that regard. And they have McBride at tight end. Their offensive line limited sacks. So if they can keep Connor healthy and still have run-pass balance, I'm not worried about their offense. Here's the thing. They drafted their first 5 draft picks, I believe, were for the defense. So they drafted heavily for the defense. And they also added 1 or 2 free agents. And I don't care. To me, it's a statement. But the only thing I care about with the defense is, do they have the right coach? It's put up or shut up time for their defensive coordinator. He has all the tools that he needs, in my opinion, to make this defense better and to challenge even for the first spot in the NFC West, which is a crazy division to begin with. I don't know if he's good enough, but it's put up or shut up time for him right now because there are pieces in place.
I did see that photo of Harrison last year and Harrison this year coming into camp, and he certainly has been working hard on the off season. He looks like a different person almost. So I think I think I think they could have a good season, but also it's a culture thing too. So if things kind of go off the track, then maybe they stay off the track. But they could pull it all together, but I'm not optimistic about it.
So for me, it's kind of a wait and see, chart the defense and so on. I'm going in with no expectations for Arizona because I think it's a volatile assessment. My pass through, my win grid, we're not exactly on the same page here. I think there's so much volatility. I think I have to let what happens dictate where I go. I don't have any preconceived Arizona idea.
That's the being short on comments is basically because on some of these teams we could talk to her blue in the face. Let's see what it's a waste of time. Get on the field, show us what you got. That's the way I look at it. I think I've only placed one NFL bet, and that was you pointing it out to me, and that was the Rams under. And that was early in the season. That was before the Stafford news came out that he might be dinged up. And I kind of felt like last season, I mean, that's a good team. And there's a lot of good on that team. But I also think that that they're just doomed to have issues constantly. I think they did as well as they possibly could have with the circumstances of injuries when they had it happened and such. And they really didn't shoot themselves in the foot like some teams do. They made the most out of what they could last season. But I don't think Stafford's durable. I didn't think that going in, and I just feel like, well, they're good, but they're not all that.
Mm-hmm. I have two things in the Rams good column and three things in the Rams not so good column. So the good thing is there could be some sort of dynamic connection with Devontae Adams, and if Stafford is healthy. I mean, Adams still has game-changing ability, and I think we have to team with Puka. I think that's going to be interesting in terms of what's happening there. I didn't mention the coaching, but the coaching is good too, obviously. The trade deadline is where anybody who wants to play season futures, including me, on the Rams, has to be able and willing to pivot before the trade deadline. If we see what the Rams do each and every year, they offered Brian Burns 2 first-round draft picks for Brian Burns. They couldn't get him. That didn't work out. The year they won the Super Bowl and finished 9-8 in the regular season, they had 4 other pieces, including Odell Beckham, including a cornerback, including a running back, and so on, that they added during right before the trade deadline, or people who were out of football they added, or people who were cut. You have to watch this team carefully because I'm prepared to pivot mid-season if I think the Rams are going to go all in, because that's what they like to do. What are their negatives? They really didn't perform to their record last year. By Pythagorean theorem standards, they were worse than their record last year. Their uncommon opponents this year are hard. Compare them to the team that we're going to discuss soon, the 49ers, and it's night and day different. And they had a bottom 4 draft this year, in my opinion. They didn't get it done as much. In fact, one of the players I liked the most, I got Ted involved in this one. I said, when you go out there, talk about undrafted free agent Shane Dolak, because they aren't going to be able to cut him. Undrafted free agent. He doesn't look the part. He doesn't fit the profile. He's going to make the team. And he, according to roster cuts yesterday, he made the team. He's just a guy who makes plays out there, much like Detroit's Rodriguez and Minnesota's Ivan Pace. Dolak is one of those guys. This is the hard part, Chris, is that my win grid says that the Rams now we have a line of, or I had a line of 10.5. I think it was under 10.5 wins. My win grid says that they could win 10 games. My win grid has them equal to San Francisco in the division and winning as many games as Detroit and Green Bay and Philadelphia. It's just a mad scramble. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Rams were able to pull a rabbit out of the hat again. But it's so fragile there.
I forgot to comment on this, I thought the signing of Williams was a steal. I forget what it exactly was, but it was like 4 or 5 years for $15 million. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That guy is great. I thought that they stole him, and Williams could have gotten a much better deal than that.
Yeah, well, running backs are cheap these days. Even Barkley barely makes $15 million, I think. There's only a few running backs that are $10 million or more. So I think prevailing market, that was a good deal for Williams, especially when running backs can be replaceable. I like Williams to a point. His yards per carry has to go up, in my opinion.
Well, we shall see. Devontae Adams, I don't think what do you expect out of him?
I think his ceiling is very high. His floor is that maybe he'll lose a step, but teamed with Puka, if Devontae Adams doesn't have to be wide receiver 1 here, and that's why he becomes more valuable. If Puka's not on the team, then I say, well, if the best defender is always going to guard Adams, or if he's going to get double coverage, that hurts him. But team with Puka, I think he's dangerous.
Jimmy G's the backup?
He's the backup, and other than cluster interceptions, he has quite the winning record in the NFL. So it's not bad. Stetson Bennett got all the work in the in the preseason, but I don't think he's ready for the NFL. So they have to rely on Jimmy G.
I always really liked Jimmy G as a backup emergency type guy, but
yeah.
But if you look at his last performances, 5, 6, 7 game run, it was pretty ugly, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he threw an interception he wishes he had back that enabled the Rams to move on. That was just a caught. Well, no, I don't think that was him, but he has thrown interceptions. Roger, he makes a good point. McVay, I mean, you have to take into account that he's one of the top coaches right now, because without that, I'd be a little bit more bearish on the Rams. I still think it's going to be hard to get over 10 wins, but if everything goes according to plan for the Rams, I think it can happen. Upgrade over Cooper Kupp, probably. Cooper Kupp, I think Cooper Kupp can be decent in Seattle, but it was time for a change of scenery for Cooper Kupp.
Well, he's having a problem staying healthy the last couple of years too. San Francisco seemed to be like literally just, you have to worry about them being challenged throughout the course of the season because of how easy their schedule is. But they signed Purdy. Who's he going to throw the ball to? Do they have any receivers? The last I heard, they were all injured.
They're all injured. Even the rookie Jordan Watkins is slow to recover right now. So the second-year receiver, Pearson, I think is his name, he's going to be a focal point of this offense while they're trying to get healthy. And a healthy George Kittle, I mean, this guy just plays he gives his whole body out. So week 1, he's very healthy. You don't want to see him banged up. I mean, because they don't have enough weapons to compensate for a not healthy George Kittle. But right now, you have Kittle healthy and you have Pearson healthy. And you have, hopefully, McCaffrey healthy. So given the schedule and given you have these 3 pieces in place, I think they're okay. But you got to – what do we say every year? You got to watch San Francisco's health every year.
Well, they need new medical trainers.
I know they do.
I mean, they're not even making it to the game to week 1 before the infirmary is filled. So
I would change their dietary habits. I would change how they work out. I would change anything that they do regarding health.
What do you consider their depth? I mean,
deep in the defensive line. Really deep because they've always built from the inside on out. That's been the 49er mantra. We'll continue to draft first round defensive linemen. And they did that again. Very thin in the secondary, or if they have bodies, they're just bodies. That's a problem for me. Right now, not deep at wide receiver, as we mentioned. Pretty deep at running back. They just traded for Washington running back, Brian Robinson, I think is his name. So as long as McCaffrey stays healthy, they could spell him with some pretty decent guys. Not as deep as I'd like to see at tight end.
Well, this is the opposite of the Staley observation or thoughts. I think this is the perfect situation for Saleh to come back to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's he's been there. I don't think he's going to have sour grapes. I think it's a comfortable situation for him.
Okay, so I have a plus minus with special teams, and I care about special teams. Their place kicker, Moody, 40 yards and beyond last year, he made 10 kicks and he missed 10 kicks. In the NFL, 10 out of 20 from 40 plus usually gets you fired. I mean, you shouldn't be having a job. Now, the positive is they have a net upgrade in special team coordinator, which is helpful for them. So maybe some of their return defense, some other things are going to be better for San Francisco. But we have to watch what goes on we have to watch every single unit, Chris, with this team.
Birdie says they're not very deep.
No, and they lost a couple of institutional players that they let go. Who took them? Denver took them, 2 defensive players. So they still have Fred Warner, and he's a future Hall of Famer. 5
rookies on defense. That seems a little dicey.
Yeah, it's going to be different. But again, they're deep and they were dead set against having a repeat performance with their run defense. This is usually a top 5 run defense, and it skied last year. It didn't perform to expectations at all. So, that's the mark of San Francisco is they stuff you at the line of scrimmage and then they take their chances passing. And they're not going to play who's who in quarterbacks this year.
Okay, we're going to the NFC North.
You want to skip Seattle?
Oh.
Yeah. I don't mind skipping Seattle because for the second straight year, I have no idea what they're going to be.
I have, maybe that's why that sums up Seattle for us.
I don't know.
I think that they have enough tools to be relevant, and I don't think that I think that they could do something, but I don't know Jack Diddley about them, if that makes any sense.
Food for thought for people out there. I like the pacing of their schedule. 10-7 was an overachievement last year. I worry about Sam Darnold in clutch game situations. He won't have 2 of the 3 wide receivers that they counted on last year, so they have to hope the new guys stand up. They're still going to get sacked a lot, 54 allowed last year. And their own coaching staff, their own management, GM, told us that they have some concerns about cornerback this year. And if they tell you that, then I tell you that too. If they're concerned about cornerback, then I am as well. They have a new offensive coordinator. They surprisingly dumped Ryan Grubb, who went back to DeBoer in Alabama this year. And we'll see. They're going to run some of those schemes that get the running backs going. We don't know when Kenneth Walker is ever going to stay healthy. It's like Arizona to me. There's a lot of unknowns with this team.
Birdie brings up as far as a bet and value goes, Seattle's has some value. They can win the division. This division is still sort of Yahtzee. I mean, we wouldn't expect Arizona to win, but if they ended up winning by the end of the season or Seattle ended up winning, I don't think any of us would be surprised.
I mean, listen to this. I have the Rams ceiling as contending for the number one seed and their floor not making the playoffs.
Right.
San Francisco ceiling is contending for the number one seed with that crazy schedule. And the floor is probably third place in this division because Arizona could get better defensively and Seattle could adapt to the new coaching change at offensive coordinator. I think it's a coin flip whether Seattle or Arizona make the playoffs. And if they make, maybe the Rams don't make it. So it's a mess.
We talked about it last year that home field isn't working for him. That 12th man retired.
Yeah, 3-6, I think, last year at home field. They're going to have to get that back if they want to. If they want to be considered serious, they have to get that back.
And I think good. That's Sam Darnold. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird move. He can throw some really good passes, and then he could turn around and just not know where he is, scrambling around.
I think the Bears are going to be better than they were last year. Same situation we talked about, but they may not. They should have won more games last year.
Yeah.
So they shorted themselves. But I just have a feeling that there's going to need to be an adjustment period. You've got the first, Ben Johnson, I respect and stuff. But he's got issues with Caleb, and they've got to change this culture. I don't think it's going to be an immediate changeover, and they're going to have some growing pains.
It'll be a fascinating watch because they didn't let loose Caleb Williams last year. They had him take a lot of sacks, but they had him throw a lot of short patterns last year. Now they're better at wide receiver, and they're better at tight end this year. And they're better on offensive line for that matter, because instead of trying to draft guys that I hate, they went out and got starters from other teams. So they got free agents instead of rely completely on the draft. They have an emerging sack specialist who had 4 preseason sacks. He was way too young. He was one of the youngest guys drafted last year out of Kansas, a guy named Booker. And now with a year under his belt, and now that he's 20 years old, maybe he's 21, I think he's emerging up front, and they already have a couple of other weapons up front. So it gets real interesting. And this is where Dennis Allen is an asset, because he's not a head coach anymore, but he's defensive coordinator at Chicago. So they've got better coaching and better players. But you're right about Ben Johnson. This is a trial by error for the head coach. And he seems stubborn enough that he's going to need a bye week. He's going to need some readjustment at some point, because a lot of coordinators, they just can't hit the ground running.
I think it's a good landing spot for Dennis Allen. I mean, and he'll be a help, but you can't turn that around overnight. And something rubs me the wrong way about Ben Johnson's attitude.
Yeah, I understand
what it is, but he feels like the cockiest first-year head coach I've seen. You know what? There's a difference between confidence and cockiness, and he has a little bit too much cockiness in him. That's my read on him, and I think that might become a problem.
Yeah, so Roger has a point, and what's going to be interesting with Ben Johnson and with the offensive scheme is they allowed 68 sacks last year. So Jared Goff wasn't sacked that much, obviously more of a veteran, and he had a better offensive line than Chicago. But I wonder what effect Ben Johnson's scheme is going to have on protecting Caleb Williams, because that's an important piece. The other piece, and it's damaging, I think, for Chicago, is this is a very thin running back group. A couple of guys hurt, a couple of guys have underachieved, and you're counting on Swift, their lead running back, to stay healthy for 17 games. And that's not easy. He's good when he's in the lineup, but show me number 2 running back.
I don't have confidence in Williams being anything super special, and I think there's going to be growing pains in getting Williams to think differently the way that I mean, obviously Ben Johnson's probably pretty good at putting a quarterback in a position to succeed. So that will be a help, but it's going to be a learning curve on Williams. And I was never fully in Williams' court anyway.
Yeah.
Who's Badgett? They're a backup?
Yeah, Badgett's not bad. He can run this scheme. I'm okay with him as a backup.
Detroit. They're bucking a serious trend of performance after 2 seasons of what they've done and increase in wins. So it's really hard to go against that when you've got the whole life of the NFL as a history lesson. We certainly aren't going to get 15 wins out of them this year. We know that. They lost both of their coordinators. Goff broke NFL records. 72% completion rate. They've got just a miserable schedule. But as everybody knows, they've got a rest advantage in most of the games that's never been seen before. Lots of primetime games. But, things could go south on them real fast, too. I mean, it's going to be really interesting. I'm cautiously optimistic. They have no backup quarterback as far as I'm concerned. They let Hooker go. That's a failure. I mean, you piss away a draft pick like that on a quarterback and you just let him go. And now you have Allen. And boy, Allen, I'm not sure he is a serviceable backup. So Goff has to stay healthy. I'm not worried about the offensive and defensive coordinator transitions. I think that both of them are going to be fine. They were part of the organization in the past in one way or another. I forget the defensive coordinator's but he has passion and he has the attitude you exactly need. The only other thing that I can really probably add is I think Jameson is going to be a guy we want to look at in props. I think that he's going to impress. I think they're going to use him differently, and he's going to get more opportunities. He really has shown remarkable, mental changes and preparation that has been very impressive to the coaches.
Okay, so here we go. It's not just the coordinators. They lost 6 positional coaches as well. Yeah. And I think when you lose, that's a little bit underrated when you have that much kind of change. You're right. Their uncommon opponents are brutal. Tampa, the Rams, and Kansas City. It evens the playing field in a division where we know Chicago is going to get better coaching because you couldn't get worse coaching than last year's Chicago team. You know that Minnesota has continuity at defensive coordinator with Flores and continuity with their coach being a quarterback whisperer and all that. And Green Bay is pretty steady as they come. There's not going to be that many changes with Green Bay, but there are too many changes with Detroit with the schedule and everything else. Even with Hutchinson back, and I have every belief that he's going to be back and not going to have an injury lag period. It just seems like he's ready to go. Even with that, they were still in the bottom group with Hutchinson as far as team sacks, and they need somebody else to step out. And a couple of those guys are on non-football injury lists right now. So, injuries, you follow Detroit, they had massive cluster injuries last year, and they still have some injuries this year. So that's a problem as well. 7 outdoor games. So I think we're going to see Goff look a little less accurate at times. Doesn't mean he doesn't have weapons, but a little less accurate. Make no mistake, I still have this as a good team. I have them as one of the 5 that could win the number 1 seed. But I also have, from what power ratings I sent out a few days ago, they're still 5th in my power ratings for the entire NFL. Philly is 4th, they're 5th, and then the 3 in the AFC are 1, 2, 3. They're still 5th, but I did downgrade them a half a point from when we last talked because I realized that they're not where they need to be to start the season. They're not. The coaches acknowledge they didn't play well. Something is missing right now, and that speaks back to all those assistant coaches, in my opinion. I think there's just too many changes to think that they're going to hit the ground running. And just like we said yesterday, if they start 1-0, if they beat Green Bay at Green Bay, the preseason doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. And I have to realize that, and everybody has to realize that. But if they start 0-1, the preseason is still in their front view mirror kind of thing. They have to get that first win to get over what happened the last few months.
I agree. I agree with almost everything you said. When I'm starting off about the Lions saying I'm cautiously optimistic, that should tell you something. You can't put your finger on it, but you're gonna have some obstacles to overcome. Last year's injury situation was ridiculous. It honestly felt that if you fielded who was on their injury team, that they could win a game.
Yeah,
those players. So I'm not a huge Campbell fan. I know there's a comment. I don't know if they're sarcastic or not about coach. They've got a great coach, but I like Campbell a lot. I just don't think he's an X's and O's guy. And at some point, I believe his coaching style wears thin. I believe this is way too early for that in the process, but he's going to be running this ship, and I'm not 100% sure he's going to be able to do that without some mistakes along the way. So I think I like where they're coming from because I think they know that they're going to have to work harder this year to pull things together. They just got so many barriers and obstacles with the schedule and adjusting to all those changes. It's like you said, you don't know where the problems are going to come, but they're going to come.
Yeah, I mean, you can't rely on this team being what they were last year. And they earned their record last year by Pythagorean theorem methods. They earned it. So that's a plus. Game 1 at Green Bay is tough. They're in a favorable situation week 2 against Chicago. Game 3 is Baltimore. The last 2 games of the year are both on the road, again in division. So I think this race comes down to the wire at Minnesota, at Chicago to end the year. Schedule maker did them one favor is that they're playing a whole bunch of teams off Monday Night Football, which is unprecedented. But other than that, the opponents they face, pretty difficult.
It's unbelievable. It really is.
That comment is really important, that Lions will live and die by their 4th down conversion rate, because that's where that strategy isn't always right.
Yeah.
Good comment.
I'm scared for the Lions because I would hate to see a team that is as good and as equipped as they are not see the success. They have the players. They have to stay injury. They've got to limit the injuries, and they just can't shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I'm cautiously pessimistic on them that the wheels could fall off before they find a niche. But Goff knows his stuff, and he's so level-headed, and he's very smart, and he's quick in terms of what he needs to do, and he's had success. He could pull them out of it.
So I was driving people to the airport, one from Wisconsin, and I said, you know what? What is it with this Green Bay? Do you guys, as Green Bay fans, think Love is as good as he's? Is he really $50 million plus and top tier quarterback? I don't see it. And I don't. They've got a million receivers and such, but they've got a lot of issues, and Love can't seem to stay healthy. And I think if they don't have a good year, I think pressure's on them, even though they're a young team in a lot of ways. I think they've got to do better than they have. And I think if Love doesn't have a good year, he's going to be, in the doghouse in a lot of eyes.
He's going to have cluster interceptions from time to time. That's just in his DNA. He thinks his arm is strong enough to get it through to certain people, and it's not always going to work. We're going to have to live with that. But this could have been Tommy Maddox. If you remember Tommy Maddox, drafted in the first round, out of the league in 2 years or something like that. What an unbelievable situation for Love not to play his first 2 or 3 years and sit behind Aaron Rodgers. If he plays as a rookie, you and I and Ted and I have had this discussion from time to time. If he plays as a rookie, he gets into bad habits. He would either be Maddox or Sam Darnold at this point, and possibly even out of football because he wasn't ready. He has transformed himself into a quarterback that I'm not worried about. And I just have to understand there's going to be some bad from time to time. But I definitely think he's an above average quarterback.
Well, I wouldn't say he's, I just don't think he's, I don't think he's top tier.
Mm-hmm.
He could be. I just haven't seen enough. I mean, he has flashes of greatness, but he also has, bonehead stuff. So
this is a case where it's too bad for Green Bay the schedules aren't flipped, because I like Green Bay better than Detroit, but I like Detroit's schedule, not necessarily their opponents, but their pacing better than Green Bay. Green Bay has 3 back-to-back road games. They have a bad second half of the year rest differential, and I worry about fatigue at some point in the second half of the year. So there are some things that I don't like about Green Bay's pacing, but this is the 3rd year in a row, by the way, that Green Bay has the youngest roster in the NFL. So they've taken great pains to continually be young and to dump some of their older players. They have very few. Kenny Clark, I think, on the defensive line, and maybe 1 or 2 others are the old guard for this team. But at wide receiver, there's always kids at wide receiver. They have another one that they really like, Matthew Golden out of Texas. They have a second-year running back backing up a veteran at running back. They still have tight ends, 2 of them that are on rookie contracts. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic, and I think they have a good coach as well. There's some things they have to fix, but I have them squarely in the mix, knowing that you're going to get some off kilter performances, but also some good ones.
Okay, I don't know. Are they a candidate for last place in the division?
Depending on how quickly Ben Johnson gets Chicago, sure, they're all candidates for. I don't think Detroit's a candidate for last place. The schedule's brutal, but yeah, I mean, I think Green Bay has the most consistency in terms of roster compared to the other 3. So I'd rather say that there's a higher ceiling and floor for Minnesota than, for example, than Chicago or Green Bay.
So Minnesota was the darlings at the start of the summer, and I think I don't know whether they should have gotten rid of Darnold. What has McCarthy done? It seems like they're 100% sure. It seems that McCarthy is going to be adequate and step in and do well. I mean, I'm a Michigan fan, and I don't know what to make of this guy. So I would have let him stay behind Darnold and kept some consistency. I feel like they're throwing into the wolves needlessly. They didn't have to. I mean, obviously they, maybe it would have come down to a pure money decision, but I have a feeling Darnold might have, been able to work something out with them to stay because he had already found success. Why would he want to start over someplace else? I just thought it was a win-win for Darnold to stay there. They started off.
Yeah, it's 2 ways to look at it. I think the the coaching staff didn't want to have Darnold looking over his shoulder, and that might affect his performance. And for Darnold, I think it would have affected his performance, maybe negatively. You couldn't ask for a better situation for McCarthy to go with having Justin Jefferson and Addison by his side, plus having a coach who seems to be some sort of quarterback whisperer. But McCarthy's last meaningful snap was early January in the championship game, Michigan and Washington. So you're asking a lot right away in a loaded division.
Yeah.
So that would be my concern. And I have dilemmas all over the place because I love the fact that they have coaching continuity with Brian Flores, but I hate the fact that I don't like their secondary at all. I don't like the talent in the secondary. So if their pass rush, which he's going to blitz, if their pass rush doesn't get through, I think the secondary can get burned. And we saw that every once in a while last year, even though they had a fantastic record. Their point differential, their Pythagorean stuff didn't match their record. They're due for regression. And we know they regressed in 2023 off an unsustainable 2022. Question is, will that happen again? And it is a tough division to actually figure that out. Will they continue to be plus 340 yards in penalty differential? Amazing. Will they continue to have a plus 12 turnover ratio? I mean, there are things that usually are not sustainable that work in their disfavor. What works in their favor is perhaps coaching.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, Sam Howell is a backup. I certainly want. And they've got Carson Wentz. Jeez.
Yeah, that doesn't help. I will say, City by the Bay mentions Jordan Mason. That's an excellent pickup for them. It gives them a quality second backup. So I think you will see, and McCarthy's going to have to rely on this run-pass balance. And McCarthy has something that Darnold didn't have, and maybe every Viking quarterback hasn't had for a long time. He has an offensive line that was finally upgraded. Two guys from, I think, the Colts, two starters. Darisaw is back from injury, and they drafted, I believe, a lineman as well. This is the best. This is potentially the best offensive line that Minnesota has had in over a decade.
It just feels like it's just goofy. There's a lot of unknowns with the team. Jefferson's coming back from injury. Addison starts off. He's missing games, right?
Yeah. He's missing the first 3 games. He'll be back. Interestingly enough, when he comes back, he flies to London for 2 weeks because the team's games 4 and 5 are in London. He won't play on American soil until week 6 or week 7.
The Thielen thing is costing them, a fair amount because they're eating a chunk of his contract. Oh no,
yeah. He fits though with McCarthy because McCarthy needs somebody who's going to run these short routes and run them to precision, and so I think it's a good pickup for them. It's not bad at all. Week 1, I across the board in the entire NFL was the most fascinating week, not necessarily from a betting standpoint, but from a watchability standpoint, an important standpoint. It's the best week I've ever seen for week 1 in the NFL. And nothing says it more than this division, Chris, because you've got Green Bay at home, and I think it's damaging if they lose week 1. And you have Chicago at home, and I think it's slightly damaging and slightly invigorating for Minnesota if they can get McCarthy a win on the road week 1. I mean, you have 2 NFC North divisional week 1 matchups that are important.
Yeah, there's 6 divisional matchup games week 1, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a really good schedule for week 1.
It's going to be just really interesting to see how everything unfolds. I feel like hurry up and wait. There's nothing I can do. I'm not in a hurry to bet. I'm not in a hurry to dig myself into an early season hole. I'm very interested to just see how things start off, and I'm going to take the beginning of the season lightly. there's a lot of interesting teams this year, and they can go a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Again, we won't overreact to week one, no matter what the results are. I do have several week one opinions, maybe 13 of them or something like that. So we'll see how much the work that I put in kind of pays off. But regardless, it's never a bad strategy to take it 1 week at a time. And if you're not comfortable week one, don't try to squeeze in plays just because you have to squeeze in plays. Try not to get behind early if you don't have that kind of conviction.
Everything it relates to price on teasers, so it's going to be hard to find good price teasers this year. But 6 teams is a lot to manage. 6 is a little bit too much.
Yeah. You hate to go 5-1 and say, wow, if I would have just eliminated one team. You start second guessing.
I hit a 9-teamer and an 8-teamer and a handful of 6s, but those were like goof around ones. But they were fun.
Closing thought, any contest strategy thing you want to throw out for week one?
I'm frustrated just staying on top of when the deadlines to enter are, and I'm just hoping that I can get my picks in on time. The Westgate College Football Contest starts today. I'm not even signed up. I may not even get in it.
So that's your best piece of advice. Get your picks in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a bad piece of advice, actually.
I think people are sick and tired of my contest advice. So it's like, if you have questions, ask.
Well, hopefully this was helpful going over the AFC. It was helpful to me going over the AFC yesterday and the NFC today. As people could tell, we're ready to start. We're ready to talk football.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do, and as it gets closer, the only thing you have to fight is, impulse and urge to get yourself involved in things that you don't need to. It's a long season, and I say it every year, but I know that approximately 50% of people that fund offshore accounts have emptied those before the end of September. So it's pretty silly.
Yeah. Yeah. You can get yourself in trouble right away. And you never know. If you take Washington week one, be a little bit scared, maybe.
We appreciate everybody watching. And we're going to be back next week then, right? Tuesday, maybe?
Yeah. We'll TBA as far as what's going on behind the scenes. But hopefully week to week, we'll have some content out there and have fun talking about football.
Yeah. And buy all those products we tried to sell you.
Yeah. Yeah. They're selling out fast too. So get them while you can.
All right, everybody. Catch you next week.